All right, so hello everybody. Welcome back to GraceNicoleMyths, Astrology and Tarot. So after I was done the readings earlier, I picked my son up from school and found another delivery in the mailbox. So of course, I'm guided to read for you again. Only this time we are doing a person 1, person 2 reading. I am using the Healing Light Tarot, which is the one that came in the mail. So, all in divine time, right? Take it as it resonates, guys. If it doesn't resonate, don't force it to fit. This is not intended to be a love reading. It may end up a love reading, even if you are not in a romantic dynamic with anybody, or don't have a specific person on your conscious mind or the back of your mind. Know that it can relate to any dynamic regardless of how I read it. Okay, so take it as it resonates for you. And like I said, and if it doesn't resonate, like, don't force it. So, person 1 and person 2. Spirit, please. What is going on? Give us some insight into person number 1. Give us some insight into person number 1. Where's their energy at? Where's their energy at? All right, we have the 6 of coin and the 4 of sword. Give us some insight into person number 2. Give us some insight into person number 2. So we have the 5 of coin and the Hanged Man, the 2 of Wands, the 10 of Cups, and the Page of Cups. Double 12s. Because we've got 12 with the Hanged Man and 10 and 2 for another 12. So... All right, so person number 1. Person number 1. We've got the 6 of coin and the 4 of swords. Okay. This card, if you look at it, the scale is not balanced. And in the 4 of swords, you can see there's 2 coffins there, masculine and feminine, not just one. I feel like this person has given all that they could have possibly given to the point that it became unbalanced and decided to take a break. Okay? They gave all that they could give to the point of it being unfair. There was no reciprocity. The masculine aspect of the self, right, the shot calling aspect or the choosing aspect, the action was giving to a heart space and not getting anything in return. And so both the masculine and feminine aspect of that person retreated, took the actions towards them away, and the love for that person away. Okay, this person gave to the point of unfairness and then took everything away. Okay, took everything that they were giving, not back from this person, but from this person, the ability to continue to letting them take, right? The ability for them to take, they ceased that. This person retreated, okay? Stopped giving, stopped caring. They just tapped out, right? They tapped out, energetically tapped out. Person number 2. We have the 5 of Coins, which is poverty mindset, right? Or impoverished energy. Nothing to give, right? So person number 1 was giving and giving and giving and giving and giving to person number 2, and person number 2 is the impoverished mindset, right? The one that was taking. Now, because person number 2 is in poverty mindset and was taking and taking and taking without reciprocity, I feel like what they're going through now is this energy here, where they're seeing things from a different perspective. They're at this point in the journey where they're either going to transcend or stagnate, right? This is them being in a position of standing at the crossroads. What kind of world, what kind of reality do they really want to live in, right? And so they're looking at things differently. They want the 10 of Cups. They want the 10 of Cups, and they do want to communicate. They want to apologize. However, I do feel like this energy with the Page here is still a beginner, okay? An emotional beginner. They do want the 10 of Cups. I feel like they feel like the 10 of Cups comes with person number 1. And they're at a crossroads seeing something. They're looking at something from a new perspective. Okay, like maybe if I want person number 1 to keep giving to me, I have to give back to them. Like it's got to be fair, right? Because person number 2 was taking to the point of it not being fair to person number 1. Person number 1 was giving and giving and giving so much that they withdrew person number 2's ability to take from them. Okay, they withdrew their presence, love, finances, you named it. Okay, they took it and went into retreat. They went into retreat. Bottom of the deck, hold on here. Bottom of the deck was the Wheel of Fortune. Top of the deck was the 2 of Coins. All right, so as of right now, the overall energy with these two, I think that the ideal doesn't quite match the real. I think with the double ships here on the top of the deck with the 2 of Coins, that in order for things to shift and change, right, that the Wheel of Fortune would turn in their favor. The bottom of the deck, the Wheel of Fortune, literally has the Doctrine of Changes on it. Okay. It literally has the Doctrine of Changes on it. And I'm feeling as if these two are going to have to energetically meet each other halfway or find common ground, right? Find some kind of common ground with each other. You can see this here. I think they have to find some common ground. There's 2 ships here. And there's moon cycles here. So there's definitely healing going on within the cycles for these two. And I'm feeling like if they're going to meet each other halfway, they have to be willing to not argue. Like, no matter what, there's no arguing. And if you decide to argue, you know what I mean? If you decide to argue, you have to understand you're going to be going at it alone. You're going to be moving forward alone, whether you're person number 1 or person number 2. And that means you're going to have to start over, right? Beginner's mind, start over. Give me some more insight, please, Spirit, into where person number 1 is. Because person number 2, right, poverty mindset, is going through some perspective changes. They're focused on the dream becoming a reality, but they're still an emotional beginner and may or may not need to communicate some kind of apology with the Page of Cups. So where is person number 1 at? Give me some more insight into person number 1. Who are they? Where are they at? What are they doing? What is the deal with person number 1? What is the deal with person number 1? What's going on with them? Ace of Cups, Page of Swords. And the Ace of Wands. I think person number 1. Ace of Cups, they're definitely the overflow. Okay, what they were giving and giving and giving was probably love. Okay, they weren't necessarily overflowing coin or giving money or whatever, but they were giving love, they were giving compassion, they were giving consideration, they were giving truth, they were giving presence, they were giving time, right? They were giving all of these non-material things to person number 2. And they may be mentally resetting, okay, to allow what is essentially this spiritual shared connection. I'm almost reading that as like a cord, right? Like an energetic cord. Allowing the energy to reflow through the connection. This person has a lot of love to give, a lot. This is an endless overflowing cup, right, of love and fortune. And I think they're going through a reset. Mentally, I think they're going through a reset in order to allow the energy of reconnecting to person number 2 happen. Bottom of the deck is the Ace of Swords. Top of the deck is the Fool. Yeah, this person number 1 will take a leap of faith and reset with the truth. With the truth, when the truth comes out, the heart's truth, with the Queen of Swords under that, possibly dealing with a Libra as person number 2, the sacred soulmate. All right, possibly someone who was either reckless or unfaithful, with the Knight of Wands under that. Okay. They're willing to take a leap of faith and reopen the channel with person number 2 with the truth. They want the truth. Okay. That's all they're asking for. Person number 1 is asking for the truth. Person number 2 wants fate to change, right? Person number 2 wants the Wheel of Fortune. They want their fate to change. They want to correct whatever has happened or transpired. And person number 1 is like, okay, well then I want the truth. Like, fate can change. The future can change, right? The reality can change if you give me the truth. So, truth is what is being asked for. Because person number 2 is definitely reevaluating their connection with person number 1 and why person number 1 pulled away. This person had a lot of love overflowing, and person 2 didn't reciprocate that energy. And so now they're reevaluating why person number one is not around, how to get them back, because person number one is the dream or the emotional fulfillment. But person number two is impoverished, right? The mindset's in poverty. So they're going to have to come forward. They're going to have to come forward with the truth and emotionally reset. They're going to have to offer compassion and forgive person number one essentially for pulling away, because they're going to have to come with some kind of understanding. Okay, they're going to have to come with some kind of understanding and compassion for person number one and why person number one pulled away. Because if for whatever reason, like this impoverished energy is feeling bitter that person number one has and they don't, right? Person number one has the whole cup of love and they're not getting any. If for whatever reason person number two is bitter, they're not going to be able to reconnect the energy with person number one. Okay. Give me some insight into how person number one feels or looks at person number two. How does person number one perceive person number two as of right now? How do they perceive person number two? How does person number one perceive person number two? How does person number one perceive person number two? The Five of Swords. What else? Anything else? How person number one perceives person number two? Okay. Five of Swords, Two of Cups, Knight of Swords. They view this person as someone who is mentally or verbally combative. They do recognize person number two as their soulmate. Okay. They do recognize person number two as their soulmate, but they're torn because the ideal does not match the reality, right? That Two of Pentacles is back on the deck. And the Four of Coins is on the bottom of that. So they're holding on to the high ground right now. They may also believe that person number two is extremely stubborn and juggling. Okay, and juggling. But they might definitely see person number two as someone who is combative and verbally or mentally abusive. Someone who is very sharp with their words, which reflects a level of ungratefulness. Because for someone who overflows and gives like that, love energy, that kind of energy is never going to feel deserving of sharp words or the abuse, right? Verbal or mental abuse, psychological abuse. This is someone who's combative and who would rather win and cut people than take them into consideration. This is someone who's verbally and psychologically, mentally abusive. So how does person number two perceive person number one? How does person number two perceive, as of current, person number one? How does person number two perceive person number one? We have the Six of Swords. What else? We have the Strength card and the Hermit. All right, so person number 2 perceives person number 1 as someone who definitely left, right? They definitely left me. They might also be viewing person number 1 as the ship that has sailed, okay? Someone who is very strong and independent. Someone who is very courageous in moving forward on their own path. They might see person number 1 as someone who conquers their own shadows, conquers their own fears. Someone who is of the day and the night, right? The light and the dark. Someone who is in balance with themselves. They definitely feel like the ship has sailed. Person number 2, the way they perceive person number 1 is someone who has moved on and is very strong on their own. Person number 2 perceives person number 1 as someone who has moved on and is very strong and independent. This person number 1 might have literally moved away from person number 2. What is person number 1's fears concerning person number 2? What is person number 1's fears, their doubts concerning person number 2? What is person number 1's fears or doubts, right? What gives them anxiety concerning person number 2? What is person number 1 fearing of person number 2? What are they afraid of when it comes to person number 2? The 7 of Swords. They're a liar. They're afraid they can't trust person number 2. Clarify further. What are they afraid of when it comes to person number 2? What are they afraid of when it comes to person number 2? Anything else? What is person number 1 afraid of in regards to person number 2? I think that they're just really afraid they can't trust this person. What do they feel that person number 2 is lying about, right? If lies is the main concern or the main fear, they're afraid this person is lying about the new beginning. If they were to offer a new beginning, they don't trust this person when they make promises. And they don't think they're afraid this person has got someone else pregnant. This non-committal king, they're afraid that person number 2 got someone else pregnant. That this person promises the home, promises the happy family, promises to make them the empress, and then just breaks their heart. They're afraid this person's going to come towards them with some kind of opportunity to heal, and really it's just because they've knocked somebody else up or some shit like that. Because this Queen of Pentacles is very pregnant and she's money minded. Like she got pregnant by the King of Wands for monetary reasons, or she's after the King of Wands for monetary reasons. They're afraid that person number 2 isn't going to be able to show up with the happy home, isn't going to be able to show up with the dream reality, and that they're going to be heartbroken Like, they know they're the Empress. They know that the Ten of Pentacles is the home, right? The manifest home. But they're afraid they're never going to have it. I think that person number one thinks person number two got somebody else pregnant. And that maybe they have nothing, truly nothing to give because someone else kind of stole the dream away. This is an egotistical heart space, someone who is possibly non-committal and fucking around for egoic reasons because they're wildly insecure. Person number one is afraid that person number two got someone else pregnant. And that the dream will never happen. That this person was foolish. That this person was foolish and planted seeds or sowed their seed elsewhere. And that they might be hiding that. Hiding that or lying to them about it. Like, person number one does not trust person number two with being honest. Or being faithful. Or following through on their word. Okay? The fears of person number one regarding person number two. What's the fears of person number two regarding person number one? What's the fears of person number two regarding person number one? What's the fears of person number two regarding person number one? What's the fears of person number two regarding person number one? Four of Cups. They're afraid they're a missed opportunity. They're actually afraid that this person was their wish. The Nine of Cups with the Four of Cups. They're actually afraid that this person was the missed opportunity, the fucking wish granted, and they missed it. What else? What else? Ace of Pentacles sideways. They're afraid this person doesn't want to start fresh with them. They're also equally afraid that this person would start fresh with them. They don't know how to fucking handle that. Either or. Like, they know this person, right? Person number two knows person number one is the wish fulfillment. They know that person number one is the missed opportunity, the missed cup from the divine, right? This angelic cup with wings. It is the ultimate cup. This is not a third-party person, right? They're afraid that person number one was the actual cup of love given to them from the divine, the wish granted, and they're afraid that one, person number one won't want a new foundation to start with them, and they're equally terrified that person number one would accept a new starter foundation with them, because I don't think they know how to handle it. I don't know if they'd know how to handle it if person number one said, yes, I want to start new with you. Person number one doesn't trust person number two to commit. And they are definitely afraid that person number two got somebody else pregnant. And or got pregnant by somebody else. Okay. Yeah, I was speaking about that. Knight of Wands came out because they were unfaithful before. I feel like they were unfaithful before. And if person number two is afraid of person number one in regards to the Knight of Wands, they might be afraid that person number two is going to burn them. Almost like a revenge, like getting even. Like if person number 2 was in fact unfaithful to person number 1, a part of them is going to wonder if or when person number 2 would balance that scale. And be unfaithful to them. Because it's not like they wouldn't deserve it based on the past. Person number 1 is afraid that person number 2 has commitments to someone else that is going to interfere with their own happiness, their own dream. Person number 2 doesn't know how to start fresh with person number 1 if person number 1 allowed it. Give me some insight, please, Spirit, into the next steps that person number 1 is taking or is going to take. What are the next steps that person number 1 is going to take? Insight, please. What steps are person number 1 most likely to take? What is the steps that person number 1 is most likely to take? In regards to person number 2, right? What step are they most likely to take in regards to person number 2? What step are they most likely to take in regards to person number 2? We got the King of Swords. We got the 10 of Swords and the 3 of Wands. This person is likely to stick a knife in it and just move on. This person, like, they see things from a higher perspective with the King of Swords. They feel like right now this person would only betray them. That's how they feel right now, right? This is their most likely action moving forward in regards to person number 2. They see things from such a higher perspective. They look at person number 2 and feel like person number 2 is only going to betray them, and so they're moving forward. They do not trust person number 2. Trust was broken. Trust was broken. Person number 1 gave and gave and gave until it was unfair and completely withdrew. And if they were giving and giving and giving and person number 2 was unfaithful and person number 2 was not reciprocating the same amount of love back to person number 1, like, yeah, person number 1, they do not trust person number 2 at all. They moved forward. They're most likely to feel betrayed by person number 2. And because they feel like person number 2 would betray them or that person number 2 can't be trusted, they don't actually trust themselves dealing with person number 2. Because if they don't want to hurt person number 2, they don't want to hurt anybody, their distrust in person number 2 would end up hurting person number 2. They don't trust person number 2 to protect their heart space and not hurt them. They don't trust person number 2 not to betray them. They don't trust person number 2 not to lie to them. They don't trust person number 2 to be faithful to them. They feel like it's dead in the water. they're likely to kill it and move forward. They're likely to just let it be and kill it. And that might be them in their shadows, that might be them in their wounding, but as of right now, that's how they feel in regards to person number 2. They don't feel like person number 2 has given them any reason to believe in a future with them. What is the most likely action person number 2 is going to take in regards to person number 1? What is the most likely action person number 2 will take in regards to person number 1? What is the most likely action person number 2 will take in regards to person number 1? What is the most likely action person number 2 will take in regard to person number 1? Really? Anything? Alright, so we got the 4 of coin. Which is essentially standing still, feeling like you got the world on your shoulders. We got the Chariot in reverse. I think this person has excuses. I don't think they're willing to move forward. I think this person has a lot of excuses. And the 3 of coins. I think they're focusing on their work. I don't actually think they're, I don't think they're moving towards person number 1. They might be very focused on work right now. Might be very focused on holding up their own world right now. Feeling like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. I don't think they're making any movement towards person number 1. This person is probably single and playing the field. Thinking about person number 1 a lot. Knowing person number 1 is their wish fulfillment. This person's not doing anything. They're 9 of Swords energy on the bottom. This is a divine masculine chained, right? Chained to the seat in which they sit. They feel completely trapped in their own reality, and they don't have the mental time, space, energy to actually mend things with person number 1. But they know they got to make the effort. They know not making the effort is driving the nail into the coffin. The longer person number 2 does not reach out to person number 1 to right things, the less person number 1 trusts that person number 2 is worth building any kind of future with, if they believe that there's still a shred of hope for person number 2 at all. I really don't feel like person number 1 I don't feel like they trust person number 2 at all. I think they really do believe that person number 2 is reckless and probably got someone else pregnant. Or is overly committed to someone else who is all about money. Whether it's someone who is currently pregnant or was pregnant with one of their kids type thing. whose only concern is money. Like, they know that they're the Empress type energy and deserve the home and deserve the dream, and they feel heartbroken because they'll never get it. They'll never get it with person number 2. Person number 2, we got stagnation here, we got stagnation here, we got stagnation here. You know what I mean? Like, person number 1 or person number 2 is in poverty mindset. That's their dominating card. And they view person number 1 as someone who's super strong and can move on and be independent on their own. But they don't see themselves that way. They don't see themselves strong. They don't see themselves independent and able to move forward on their own. Takes a lot of strength to stop giving to someone you love and care about and walk away and cut it off. I do feel like person number 1 is very strong. And person number 2 sees that. And if person number 1 sees person number 2 as a fucking liar and someone who is weak and not worth committing to, then they're probably right. Then they're probably right. What feelings does person number 1 have concerning person number 2? What feelings does person number 1 have concerning person number 2? What are their feelings for person number 2? What are their feelings for person number 2? What is person number 1's feelings towards person number 2 or about person number 2? How does person number 1 feel about person number 2 or for person number 2? Where are their feelings for this person? The 10 of Wands. They feel like it's a fucking cockroach they carry on their back. I shit you not. Their feelings for this person, if they still have them, they feel like those feelings that they have are like a fucking huge cockroach on their back. They hate. If they still have feelings for person number 2, they hate that they do. They feel like it's literally a fucking cockroach. Their feelings are a pest that they want to exterminate. They hate that they have feelings for person number 2 at all. It's just a fucking cockroach. They feel like person number 2 is just a fucking cockroach. Any feelings they have about or for person number 2 is a burden. 10 of Wands is a spiritual burden. Any feelings they have for person number 2. They feel like person number 2 is a fucking cockroach. Just a fucking huge cockroach on their back. Just a huge burden. How does person 2 feel about person number 1? What are their feelings for person number 1? That's husband or wifey. They look at person number 2, they want to marry him. The Hierophant, that's marriage. They look at person number 1, literally, hand pointing over. They believe that person number 1 is their spouse. They want to marry him. They want to fucking marry him. Person number 1 looks at person number 2 like a fucking cockroach. And person number 2 looks at person number 1 like fucking spouse material. Like someone they truly can learn from and elevate with in soul. Well, what the fuck, person number 2? Then you got a lot of fucking healing to do with person number 1. Trust was broken. Heartache all over the place. They look at you like a fucking cockroach. Shit. Person number 2 looks at person number 1 like they're marriage material. Sacred soulmate. The cup of all cups. The lovers on top. Like, seriously? Person number 2 looks at person number 1 like the love of their life. The love of their life. I shit you not. I looked at the top and bottom of the deck and that's there. Person number 1 is the love of person number 2's life. Like, person number 1 was afraid. They're afraid that this person was the wish granted, the cup of overflowing love from spirit, the angelic cup, because they were. Shit. Person number 2. What are we going to do with you? All person number 1 asked for was the truth. All person number 1 asked for was the truth. Really. What can person number 1 receive from person number 2, right? What is the one thing that person number 2 can give to person number 1? What is the one thing that person number 2 can give to person number 1 to start things over? What is the one thing that person number 2 can offer person number 1 in order to start things over? The 4 of Wands. Joy, stability, celebration, it's twin flame energy, soul recognition, balanced spirit, right? This is an 11-11 card, 1-1-1-1. They want both masculine and feminine aspects on the table in balance. They want fucking balance. They want reciprocity. They want joy. They want soul stability. They want to be able to trust their soul with you. They're asking for joy. They're asking for spirit. They're asking for stability. They're asking for a reason to celebrate. The one thing that person number 2 can give person number 1 in order to start over, fucking soul recognition. They want the soul to step up. They want a balanced, masculine, feminine person. They don't want a taker. They want someone who is equally giving, right? Just taking is not going to cut it. Like, yeah, you can take the love that person number 1 gives you, person number 2, but you also have to be able to reciprocate it. They love being able to give to you, or they wouldn't have done it as much as they did. They love loving you, but they loved being loved too. They love being loved too. It makes them want to love you more. You know what I mean? What is the one thing that person number 1 can give person number 2 in order to start over? What is the one thing that person number 1 can give person number 2 to start over? What is the one thing that person number 1 can give person number 2? So that they can start over. Really, person number 1 wants a balanced soul. They want soul balance. They do want the happy family and the joy and the stability. They want the happily ever after. That's the 4 of Wands. They want reason to celebrate. They want marriage. They do. They want it. What can person number 1 give person number 2? They want someone their soul can depend on, person number 1. What can person number 1 give person number 2 in order to start over? Anything at all, please, Spirit. Two of coin. They want a chance. Twos are crossroads energy. They just want a chance. They just want an opportunity. They want a chance to show person number one that they can make the reality an ideal. They just want a chance. They just want a chance. Well, bring your best healing forward. Bring your best healing forward. Close old cycles. Close old cycles. Person number two, if you are holding up the world somewhere else and feel like you're locked in, you might need to leave that whole world behind. Bring your best healed self forward. If you really want person number two and you view them as your soul spouse, you want a chance, then you're going to have to come forward. You're going to have to come forward whole and ready to commit to the joy of life with person number one. And absolutely never fucking betray them. Like, trust was broken, I guarantee you, if person number one gave person number two a chance and person number two blew it a second time, or if this is the third time or the fourth time, like if person number one actually gave the chance that person number two is asking for, person number two, do not fucking blow it. Do not be in this mindset, this impoverished energy when you approach person number one. Because if you don't feel good enough, if you don't feel worthy, if you don't feel like you're bringing enough to the table, you're gonna sabotage yourself. You have to feel worthy of person number one because you give person number one what they deserve. You give person number one what they deserve, and you are worthy of person number one. But you obviously didn't give them what they deserved before. Which is why they look at you like a fucking cockroach. An untrustworthy, lying, thieving, cheating, probably got some other body pregnant, you know, tied down to other obligations. They're your last priority type person. That's how they view you. They view you like everybody is a priority except them. And they give to you and give to you and give to you and never got anything back in return. So you're going to have to overcome that perception. The only way to overcome that perception is with actions. Words don't mean shit. Words don't mean shit. Good luck. Good luck. What needs to be remembered? Spirit, let's pull a power of love card for these two, huh? What needs to be remembered? What does person number one need to be? What? Blah, 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 blah. What does person number one need to remember? What does person number one need to remember? Cause and effect. You are aware that the love you create in your thoughts is an agent of change in the foundation of your results. Person number one, if you believe it will succeed, and you go in with that mindset, it will. If you go in with the belief that it will fail, it will. Cause and effect is a universal law. Okay? It's a universal law, cause and effect. It's that Henry Ford quote. Whether you think you can or you can't, either way, you are right. If you do decide to give person number two a chance, and you legit have to give them a chance, and believe that it is possible to succeed. Because if you really do start from this belief that it's impossible to succeed from the gate, then it won't. Okay? What is the remember card for person number two? What is the remember card for person number 2? What does person number 2 need to remember? Self-love. You realize that love of self is necessary to love another. Self-love is necessary to love another. And you know what? A lot of people look at self-love and be like, yeah, I have to focus on myself. Yeah, I gotta blah, blah, blah myself. And, you know, they think it's about meditating and taking tub baths and going for a fucking jog and drinking vegetable juice. Like, self-love, what self-love truly is being able to love and commit to the souls that love you unconditionally so that you never lose them. Because they're the energy that constantly fill your cup. They're the energy that make life safe and beautiful, that give you something worth being grateful for. Self-love is not about shutting other people out just to focus on yourself. It's about focusing on the right people and the right souls because they focus on you. Because they focus on you. You have to be willing to receive love. Self-love, you have to be able to receive love from your outer experience because your outer experience is a facet of you that is reflective of your internal state. If you are cutting off or shutting out people that love you, you are not in a state of self-love. You're rejecting self-love. When you reject people that love you, when you betray people that love you, when you betray people that give to you, when you lie to them, you are not loving yourself. You're self-sabotaging. So remember self-love. Realize that the love of self is necessary to love another. Because if you truly love yourself and you never want to lose this person, you will love them. You will love them and give them the same kind of love that you want from them. You want loyalty from them, you'll give them loyalty. You want compassion from them, you'll give them compassion. You want time from them, you'll give them time when they need it. You want their effort, then you will give effort. You want their future focus, then you need to give them your future focus. Self-love. Self-love is necessary to love another. You love yourself enough to love someone else so that they can love you in return. That's what self-love really is. You have to love yourself to love another. You have to love yourself to love another. You can't love another if you don't love who you are and you don't love what you're giving. Person number 2 is person number 1 is gonna have to recognize that person number 2 never loved themselves, and that's why they couldn't reciprocate. That's why it was unbalanced. Person number 1 already loved themselves. That's why they were able to love person number 2 and give to person number 2. That's why. Person number 1 loves who they are, loves who they are. They love loving. Person number 2 didn't love themselves enough to give back and love person number 1. So remember, person number 2, that loving yourself is necessary to loving person number 2. You have to love who you are. You can't love yourself if you're a liar. You can't love yourself if you're a cheat. You can't love yourself if you're unfaithful and non-committed. You can't love yourself if you're not putting in all of your efforts to what should be the fucking house, the dream, the ultimate, receiving for person number 1. It's like a put up or shut up. Like, bring your best energy forward. Like, remember, you got to give it all. Because person number one wants it all or nothing at all. Because that's the kind of love they give. They give it all or nothing. That's what they were doing. They gave it all or they gave nothing. And you've got to be the same way if you want to be in person number one's vibration. You got to give person number one your all. Because if you're not going to give them your all, it's not enough. All or nothing. They don't want a half-ass partner. They don't want a half-ass spouse. The reason why you see person number one, right? Person number two, the reason why you see person number one as spouse material is because they give it their all. That's spouse material. If you want person number one to view you the same way, then you've got to give it your all, 100. You've got to give it your all. You've got to commit. You've got to commit to 100. They do not want a half-ass person. Half-ass energy, they're looking at you like you're a cockroach. I don't think that person number one is completely unwilling to give you a chance, or I wouldn't be doing this reading. But I really do think that you got to completely clean slate, start your life over. And 100% commit to person number one and collaborate with person number one towards the Four of Wands. You need to commit. All right, that's it, guys. Person number one and person number two. I love you, and I'll catch you later.